The tabernacle, the presence of God in the desert. Just imagine this for a moment. The eternal God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, choosing to dwell not upon unreachable mountains, not inside palaces, not behind walls of gold, but in the midst of a tired people, newly freed, still smelling of the scars of slavery. He did not wait for them to be perfect. He did not wait for them to reach Canaan. He did not wait for them to have everything organized. He came, he descended, he dwelt among them. And it is here that our journey begins. In the solemn silence of the mount, when only the voice of the Lord resounded like gentle thunder, Moses received an order that would mark the history of the people of Israel. And they shall make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell among them. Exodus 25:8. The scene is cinematic. The wind blows between the rocks, the divine light surrounds the face of the prophet, and the echo of God's words seems to fill the sky. It was the Creator's invitation to establish His presence among men, a gesture of love and closeness. But before that dream could be fulfilled, the people would need to go through the discipline of grace, for their apostasy had interrupted, if even for a time, the construction of that holy place. Only after being once more received into heaven's favor could they proceed, guided by the great leader, in carrying out the divine command. God not only commanded, but also enabled. He chose men and filled them with wisdom and skill for the work. The very plan of the tabernacle came from the hands of the Most High, with every detail designed with perfection. The measurements, the materials, the form, the brightness of the gold and the purity of the linen, nothing would be the fruit of human imagination, but the reflection of the heavenly vision. The earthly sanctuary would be a figure of the true, a reflection of the things which are in heaven. In that place, in miniature, was represented the heavenly temple where Christ, the Lamb who takes away the sin of the world, would minister on behalf of mankind. While Moses contemplated the vision on the mount, his eyes filled with reverence, and the responsibility of transmitting to the people each detail made him tremble. It was the shadow of something eternal, the anticipation of a sacrifice that would change the destiny of humanity. The building of the sanctuary required more than precious materials. It required willing hearts. The Lord said, "Of every man whose heart moves him willingly, you shall take my offering." There would be no imposition, only love transformed into giving. The people responded with generosity, and every man came whose heart stirred him up, and everyone whom his spirit made him willing, and they brought the Lord's offering. And thus came both men and women, all willing of heart. These were not only materials. Each offering was a testimony of gratitude and devotion. The generosity was so great that soon more than what was needed had been gathered. Moses had to order them to stop. Let neither man nor woman do any more work for the offering of the sanctuary. So the people were restrained from bringing. Exodus 36, verse 6. The contrast with their previous murmurings was striking. Now the people who once yielded to unbelief showed themselves united in worship. Their zeal and liberality became an eternal example. Those who love the worship of God demonstrate this same spirit. They bring to the Lord not the leftovers, but the best. For a house built for Him must not arise from the weight of debt, but from the abundance of grateful hearts. It is the reflection of a spiritual truth. Where the love of God dwells, the offering is never forced, it overflows. The tabernacle, though small in size, was grand in glory. It measured about 20 meters in length, 6 in width and height. But what seemed limited in dimensions became majestic in meaning. Every detail reflected divine perfection. The acacia wood, resistant to time and weather, rose as a symbol of incorruptibility.
The boards, covered with gold, shone in the sun as if the desert were illuminated by the very presence of God. The roof, composed of 4 layers of curtains, combined beauty and protection. The first of fine twined linen and blue and purple and scarlet with cherubim of skillful work, revealed the art inspired by the Spirit. The others, made of goat's hair, ram skins dyed red, and badger skins, ensured safety against heat and storms. Each element was a living message. The gold that reflected light spoke of divine glory. The red of the skins reminded of the blood of the sacrifice. The cherubim embroidered on the curtains pointed to heavenly worship. The sanctuary was more than a physical space. It was a tangible symbol of the divine promise, an invitation to reconciliation, a constant reminder that God desired to dwell among His people. With every offering, every detail, the heart of Israel was called to remember that worship was not an empty ritual, but living communion. And so, in the midst of the desert, rose a temple of gold and wood, of fabrics and sacrifices, but above all, of faith and hope, the eternal testimony of a God who descends to meet humanity. Inside the sacred tent, the atmosphere was one of reverence and mystery. The structure, though simple to human eyes, reflected the glory of heaven. 2 compartments divided it, the holy place and the most holy. Between them rose a richly embroidered veil suspended on columns covered with gold. The colors, blue, purple, and scarlet, intertwined like the reflection of the firmament and the blood of sacrifice, while the threads of gold and silver gleamed in the light of the lamps. Upon the fabric, embroidered cherubim seemed to watch in silence, representing the ministering angels who connect heaven and earth. Every detail spoke of greater realities, reminding that behind the invisible veil, the heavenly sanctuary moved in perfect harmony with the plan of redemption. The tabernacle was not isolated. It rose within a space called the courtyard, surrounded by fine linen curtains suspended on pillars of bronze. On the east side, the entrance was adorned with artistic curtains, less sumptuous than those inside, yet still beautiful and worthy. There all the people could see, even from outside, the house where God chose to dwell. In the center of that courtyard, near the entrance, stood the bronze altar for burnt offerings. Upon it were consumed the burnt sacrifices, and its horns were sprinkled with the atoning blood. The fire that burned on the altar reminded that the life of the sinner could only be redeemed through sacrifice. Between that altar and the door of the tabernacle stood the bronze basin, made from the mirrors voluntarily offered by the women of Israel. There the priests washed hands and feet before entering the sacred compartments, reminding that no one may approach God without purification. Upon crossing the entrance veil, one entered the first compartment, the holy place. On the north side shone the table of the showbread, made of pure gold and crowned with delicate ornaments. Every Sabbath, 12 loaves were placed in 2 rows, sprinkled with incense, representing God's continual provision and the consecration of the tribes of Israel before Him. On the south side gleamed the 7-branch lampstand, molded from a single piece of solid gold. Its lamps never went out, continuously illuminating the interior of the sanctuary, since there were no windows. Each branch, adorned with lily-like flowers, revealed that the light of the Lord is perfect, holy, and inextinguishable. Before the veil that separated the holy from the most holy stood the altar of incense, from which fragrance rose day and night. That fire had been kindled by God Himself, and its perfumed smoke symbolized the prayers of the people rising to the heavenly throne.
But beyond the inner veil was the heart of the sanctuary, the most holy place. There stood the Ark of the Covenant, a chest of acacia wood overlaid with gold inside and out, holding within it the stone tablets, written by the very finger of God. For this reason it was called the Ark of the Testimony, or Ark of the Covenant, for it contained the basis of the eternal covenant, the 10 Commandments. Upon the ark rested the mercy seat, a lid of solid gold topped by 2 cherubim, also of gold, with wings outstretched in reverence and faces inclined toward the law. It was a symbol of the worship of the angels and of the heavenly interest in the plan of salvation.
Above the mercy seat, the Shekinah shone, the visible manifestation of the divine presence. Between the cherubim, God revealed himself. There, at times, the high priest heard the voice of the Most High. At other times, a light shone upon the angel on the right, signaling approval, or a shadow hovered over the one on the left, indicating disapproval. The most holy place was the link between heaven and earth, the point where the glory of the eternal touched human reality. It was the beating heart of worship, the place where the infinite God descended to dwell among his people. The entire tabernacle, from the altar in the courtyard to the mercy seat covered by the Shekinah, was a living picture of salvation, each detail pointing to Christ, the true Lamb and High Priest who intercedes for us in the heavenly sanctuary. The law of God kept inside the ark was the foundation of the covenant, the eternal rule of justice and judgment. It condemned the sinner, but above the law rose the mercy seat, covered by the glory of the Shekinah, where mercy was manifested. It was a living picture of redemption in Christ, for there mercy and truth have met together, righteousness and peace have kissed each other. The scene inside the tabernacle was indescribable. The walls, covered in gold, reflected the light of the lampstand. The vivid colors of the curtains exalted the beauty of holiness. And before the veil, the ark with its cherubim stood out under the divine presence. All of that, even so, was only a shadow, a pale reflection of the heavenly reality where Christ ministers on behalf of humanity. Each detail, each ray of light pointed to the greater work, the reconciliation of heaven with earth through the sacrifice of the Son of God. The construction took about 6 months. When it was finally completed, Moses carefully examined every detail. Nothing could be different from the pattern shown by God on the mount. When he saw that everything had been done as the Lord commanded, Moses blessed the builders. As the Lord commanded, so they did. Then Moses blessed them. At the same time, the multitudes of Israel gathered around the tabernacle. Eyes filled with tears and hearts beating stronger, all beheld the work of their hands. Then something great happened. The pillar of cloud descended and enveloped the sanctuary, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. The people trembled with reverence. Even Moses, the friend of God, could not enter, so great was the manifestation of divine glory. There were no shouts or noise, only a solemn silence, broken by tears and murmurs of gratitude, for the eternal God had chosen to dwell among them. But the work was not complete only with the construction. God set apart men for the service of the sanctuary. The tribe of Levi was chosen for this honor, replacing the firstborn of all Israel. It was a response to the faithfulness of that tribe when the people corrupted themselves with the golden calf.
But within Levi, only the family of Aaron could exercise the priesthood. To them belonged the service before the Lord, while the remaining Levites cared for the tabernacle and assisted in the ministry. It was a sacred distinction. Approaching the holy things required preparation, purity, and submission. No one could sacrifice or see the holy utensils before they were covered.
Thus the people learned that God is holy and that worship requires reverence. For this ministry, the garments of the priest were ordered by God himself. You shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother, for glory and for beauty. The common priest wore a white linen tunic, simple and pure, symbolizing righteousness. A belt embroidered in blue, purple, and red adorned his waist, and a linen turban covered his head. Before entering the sanctuary, they were to remove their sandals, for the place was holy, just as Moses had heard before the burning bush. They also had to wash hands and feet in the bronze basin, constantly remembering that no trace of impurity may stand before the presence of God. Each detail, even the rituals of cleansing, taught that true worship begins with a purified heart. The high priest, however, dressed in an even more splendid way. Over the common linen tunic, he wore a blue robe, woven entirely in one piece, ornamented with golden bells and pomegranates embroidered in the sacred colors. Each movement of his made the bell sound, reminding the people that intercession never ceased. Over it, he wore the ephod, a shorter garment of blue, purple, scarlet, and white, woven with threads of gold. On the shoulders of the ephod were 2 onyx stones, on which the names of the 12 tribes of Israel were engraved. Thus, every time the high priest entered before God, he carried symbolically upon his shoulders the weight of his people, interceding for them with reverence and love. Upon the ephod of the high priest rested the breastplate, the most sacred jewel of his vestment. Made of the same material as the ephod, it was square, measuring a span, and suspended from the shoulders by cords of blue through rings of gold. Its edges were adorned with 12 precious stones, echoing the foundations of the city of God, while in the center 12 other stones set in gold bore the names of the tribes of Israel. The instructions of God were clear. Aaron shall bear the names of the children of Israel in the breastplate of judgment over his heart, when he goes into the sanctuary for a memorial before the Lord continually. There was the living figure of Christ, the great high priest, who by his blood intercedes before the Father for every repentant sinner. As the psalmist declares, "I am poor and needy, yet the Lord thinks upon me." Each stone, each detail of the breastplate reminded the people of the constant divine intercession and the holiness of the priestly service. The turban, made of pure linen, completed the sacred attire. Fastened with a blue cord, it bore on the forehead a gold plate with the inscription, "Holiness to the Lord."
All the vestment, all the conduct of the priests was carefully designed to convey the holiness of God, the purity of worship, and the reverence required of those who approach him. The tabernacle and its ministry served as a copy and shadow of heavenly things. Hebrews 8:5. Pointing to Christ and to the eternal ministry he performs in the heavenly sanctuary. Each detail was didactic and spiritual. The garments, the symbols, the daily and yearly service were means of instructing the people about holiness, atonement, and intercession carried out on behalf of the sinner. The priestly ministry was divided into 2, the daily service and the annual one. The daily included the morning and evening burnt offering, the offering of incense on the golden altar, and the special offerings for individual sins, as well as those for Sabbaths, new moons, and solemnities. Every morning and evening, a 1-year-old lamb was burned on the altar with its grain offering, symbolizing the daily consecration of the people to Jehovah and the continual need of Christ's atoning blood. Every animal offered had to be without blemish, Exodus 12:5, pointing to the perfect purity of him who would offer himself as a lamb without blemish and without spot. 1 Peter 1:19. Paul explains that the followers of Christ must reflect this surrender, presenting their own bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God. Romans 12:1. The perfection of the service rendered to the Lord is not measured by human effort, but by the dedicated heart desiring to glorify God in everything it does. The daily priestly ministry and the annual ritual were a constant call to holiness and upright service. Each priest knew that God is not pleased with anything inferior to the best one can offer. Those who love God with all their heart always wish to give Him the best, seeking to align their whole life with His will. Thus, the tabernacle, with its priests, rituals, and sacred garments, was not only a set of symbols or traditions, but a living picture of the redemptive work of Christ, who intercedes for the sinner, manifests the holiness of God, and offers salvation to all who, repentant, place their faith in Him. Each gesture, each word of the service, each ascending fragrance of incense pointed to the perfect work of the Savior, who reconciled heaven with earth. In the daily ministry, the offering of incense was the act that most directly brought the priest near to the presence of God. The inner veil of the sanctuary did not extend to the ceiling, allowing the glory of the Lord, manifested above the mercy seat, to become partially visible in the holy place. As the cloud of incense ascended, the divine glory descended upon the mercy seat, sometimes filling both compartments. The priest, amazed and astonished, was compelled to retreat to the door of the sanctuary, remembering that direct access to God was granted only through intercession. Thus, by faith, he contemplated the invisible mercy seat, and in the same way, the people today must direct their prayers to Christ, the great high priest, who continually pleads for the repentant sinner in the heavenly sanctuary. The incense symbolized the intercession and merits of Christ, whose perfect righteousness makes the worship of sinful beings acceptable before God. Before the veil of the most holy place stood the altar of perpetual intercession. Before the holy place, the altar of continual atonement. Through the blood of the sacrifice and through the incense, man approached God, living figures of the great mediator, through whom mercy and salvation are granted to the repentant and believing soul. Each morning and evening, as the priest ascended with the incense, the people gathered around the tabernacle lifted in silence their prayers, examining the heart, confessing sins, and uniting faith with the merits of the prefigured Savior. Thus, the sacred moments of morning and evening became hours dedicated to worship and prayer, a custom preserved even during the exile of the Jewish people.
The showbread, or the bread of the presence, was kept always before the face of the Lord, symbolizing the constant dependence on God for spiritual and temporal sustenance. Exodus 25:30. Upon them, daily, incense was placed, reminding that every blessing and provision comes through the mediation of Christ. When the weekly bread was replaced, the incense was burned in memory of the worship, confirming the continual presence of God. Thus, both the manna in the wilderness and the showbread pointed to Christ, the living bread that came down from heaven, John 6:48-51, the source of spiritual life and reconciliation with the Father. The most crucial part of the daily ministry was the individual offering for sin. The penitent, repentant, approached the tabernacle and, placing his hand upon the head of the victim, confessed his sins, transferring them symbolically to the innocent animal. The sacrifice was executed by the offerer's own hands, and the blood carried by the priest to the holy place, sprinkled before the veil, behind which rested the Ark of the Covenant, guarding the transgressed law. When the blood could not be taken into the holy place, the flesh of the animal was consumed by the priests according to the instruction, "The Lord has given it to you to bear the iniquity of the congregation."
Thus, the sin was transferred symbolically from the individual to the sanctuary, typifying the great sacrifice of Christ. The daily service continued tirelessly year after year, for the sins of Israel, when transferred to the sanctuary, contaminated the holy places. To restore holiness, God had ordered specific atonement for each sacred compartment, as well as for the altar, in order to purify them from the uncleanlinesses of the children of Israel and sanctify them for His presence. Each gesture, each ritual, each ascending incense pointed to the continual need of purification, of sacred care for what is holy, and of the redemptive work of Christ, who, in perfect justice and mercy, removes sin and presents to the Father those who trust in Him. The tabernacle, with its daily service, thus remained as a living shadow of the heavenly sanctuary, teaching the people the importance of purity, intercession, and constant faith. On the great day of atonement, the ministry of the high priest reached the apex of the annual ritual work, symbolizing in a sublime way the redemptive work of Christ in heaven. The 2 goats brought to the door of the tabernacle had a distinct destiny. One would be killed as an offering for the sins of the people, and its blood carried into the veil, sprinkled upon the mercy seat, purifying the sanctuary from the uncleanlinesses of Israel, Leviticus 16:16. The other, the scapegoat, would carry upon itself symbolically all the sins of the people, being sent into the wilderness, representing the definitive removal of guilt and transgression, Leviticus 16:21-22. Until this ritual was fulfilled, the people remained in humiliation, fasting, and solemn prayer, recognizing that only through complete atonement would there be spiritual freedom. This annual service taught profound truths about sin, the law, and the mediation of Christ. During the year, the sin offerings accepted in the holy place indicated that there were substitutes, but did not remove guilt. The sin remained recorded until the final atonement. Only when the high priest sprinkled the blood of the offering upon the mercy seat in the most holy place, in the presence of the tablets of the law, was the justice of the law satisfied. After that, by placing his hands upon the scapegoat and sending it into the wilderness, the sin was symbolically removed forever from the people, an act that pointed to the great heavenly mediator Christ, who continually pleads for the repentant before the Father, Hebrews 8:5. The earthly sanctuary built by Moses according to the heavenly pattern served as a figure of the things that are in heaven, Hebrews 9:23. John, in vision, beheld the temple of heaven, the altar of incense, and the Ark of the Covenant, reflecting the earthly figures, Revelation 4:5, 8:3, 11:19. Thus, the tabernacle instructed the people concerning the invisible spiritual reality, revealing the work of Christ as high priest. He, upon ascending to heaven, began to minister in the true sanctuary for us, interceding with his blood, Hebrews 9:24. In the same way, the daily and annual ministry of the earthly priest symbolized the continual mediation of Christ, demonstrating the need for forgiveness, atonement, and purification before God.
The daily ministry reminded the people that, although the blood of Christ removes the guilt of the repentant sinner from the condemnation of the law, the sin remained recorded in the sanctuary until the final atonement. The service of the Day of Atonement, therefore, foreshadowed the final purification of the heavens, when the sins of repentant believers would be completely erased from the heavenly records, Revelation 20, verse 12. Just as the priest carried symbolically the sin upon the scapegoat, Christ will carry with him the sins of repentant humanity when removing, through his sacrifice and mediation, every stain of the heavenly record, leaving the sanctuary clean, ready for the eternal dwelling of God with His people. The annual cycle of the tabernacle ministry taught, day after day, the eternal truths about salvation, judgment, and the victory of Christ over Satan, the instigator of sin. Each ritual gesture, each sacrifice, each incense, and each blood sprinkled pointed to the cosmic conflict between Christ and Satan, and to the future purification of the universe. When the final atonement is fulfilled, the removed sins will be cast upon Satan, consummating divine justice. Thus, the ministry of the tabernacle, and later of the temple, instructed the people concerning redemption, the intercession of Christ, and the glorious conclusion of the history of salvation, preparing the minds of believers to understand the final victory of light over darkness. The tabernacle was the shadow, but Christ is the reality. He is our high priest, our sacrifice, and our forgiveness. If you marveled at this revelation of the Word of God, leave your like so that more people can see it. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss our next studies. And comment below, which part of this study about the tabernacle spoke to you most today? See you in the next video.